Thank you. Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. And thank you, Rasmus, for the kind words. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm really, really happy to be speaking at DrupalCon because, frankly, I'm not in your community. I don't use Drupal. I mean, I've worked together with people using Drupal, but it's not what I do. And I think it's really good that you've got someone from outside the community to come along and talk together. I feel very honored to have been asked to come along. I think that's good because I find that no matter how vibrant a community, especially in a good open source community, there is always the danger of a community becoming an echo chamber. So I think it's nice to get outside voices. I hope I can bring something to the table that way. And also, it's just a pleasure to be here because I get to be in Copenhagen again, which I love. Who here is from Copenhagen? Nice, nice. This is a very lovely city you have here. I've been coming here for a few years for the Reboot conference. Anybody been to Reboot? Yeah, great little gathering. So it's really nice to be back in Copenhagen. Now, so I'm going to talk today about the design of HTML5. Now, when I say HTML5, I actually have to clarify what I mean, which it's kind of ridiculous that I have to clarify what I mean when I say HTML5. I mean HTML5. There's a specification called HTML5. It lives at a URL. It's very clearly defined what is and isn't in the specification. That's what I'm going to be talking about. The problem is the term HTML5 has started to be applied to just about anything. Right? The same thing happened with Ajax. Initially it meant something fairly specific, and now it means anything cool done with JavaScript. That's Ajax, right? And now HTML5 is just anything cool, full stop, on the web. And I'm talking very specifically about the specification called HTML5, okay? I mean, some people, I don't mind when people talk about geolocation or web workers as being part of HTML5, that's fair enough. But when people talk about CSS3 as though it's part of HTML5, that I just don't understand. There are many reasons. I mean, maybe these people genuinely think that CSS3 is part of HTML5. That's a possibility. Maybe they have ulterior motives. They're trying to sell something and it's cooler to package it all together. Or maybe they're just idiots. I'm suspecting the third part. So CSS3 is not part of HTML5. I won't be talking about CSS today. And actually, I will kind of be talking about HTML5, but really the thing that interests me more is the design side of things. I could stand up here and just tell you, here's what's in HTML5, right, and go through a checklist of all the new stuff. But you can get that from a book, you can get that from Google, right? That's what Google is for. You find stuff and you learn the stuff. I'm more interested in thinking about the why rather than the what. Rather than what's in HTML5, why is it in HTML5? And for that, I want to look at the design principles that are driving HTML5. I find design principles in general absolutely fascinating. So design principle is essentially a belief, a tenet, a sort of core principle around which you base something, around which you build a thing, essentially. Right? Any sort of human endeavor probably has a design principle or a series of design principles at the heart of it. And there are examples throughout history of design principles behind human endeavor. A couple of examples. In America, the Declaration of Independence is effectively a series of design principles for a society. There are many examples, this is just one. You can see that the watchwords there being life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? Here's one for design principle for an economic system from Karl Marx, which essentially boils down to from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Right? You'll find these kind of design principles throughout lots of endeavors. How to build a society, how to build a system of law, how to build an economic system. Going back even further, similar to the Karl Marx principle, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's from the Nazarene Jew named Jesus Christ from approximately 30 AD. He ended up inadvertently forming a religion that's theoretically based around this design principle, but has kind of been caught up in bureaucracy. As tends to happen with a lot of these things, it's kind of drifted. And then there's examples from fiction, from works of fiction as well. When George Orwell wrote Animal Farm, the design principles are built into the story, right? 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, were the design principles built around a fictional society at Animal Farm. And interestingly, when the society changed, the design principle changed accordingly. right? It became 4 legs good, 2 legs better, right? Another fictional example, and this is probably my favorite, is the laws of robotics from Isaac Asimov. Right? Three core design principles, pretty short, pretty easy to memorize, and yet around these 3 core principles, Isaac Asimov managed to write, I don't know, 50 books based around the permutations contained within those 3 core principles around building a robot. And this is also, I think, the first example in fiction of design principles for software. In this case, the software is the software for a positronic brain, for a robot, but we have, basically back in the 1950s, a series of design principles for building software. And ever since then, you tend to find design principles behind almost every piece of software that you use. Tim Berners-Lee has gathered together his own sort of personal design principles on the W3C site. You can peruse them. And they change over time, and he changes them, and he updates them, and he adds to them. But it's really useful, and it's kind of a good thing for anybody to do, to have a URL with your own personal design principles listed for everyone to see. And you can see that his watchwords there, simplicity and modularity, behind software engineering in general, and behind the internet upon which the World Wide Web is based, it's got decentralization and tolerance, right? So those principles he took from the internet and applied to the World Wide Web, which worked out really, really well. So Tim Berners-Lee, as well as inventing the World Wide Web, also gave us the language that powers the World Wide Web. And this is roughly the time sequence with that language. You'll notice there's no HTML version 1, there never was an official version 1. There was a document called HTML tags back in 1991. Maybe it had a handful of tags, maybe 20 tags, that were based on SGML tags, right? Tim Berners-Lee didn't try to invent everything from scratch. He built upon what was already there. He built upon the principles of the internet, and he also built upon SGML for making HTML. Okay, sort of evolution rather than revolution. And the first official spec was HTML 2.0. It was 1995, and that was from the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, because the W3C didn't exist at that time. The first spec from the W3C came out in 1997, HTML 3.2. You can see there was a lot of rapid evolution. 1997, we went from 3.2 to 4.0 within the space of 1 year. It was a very, very turbulent time on the web. Remember the browser wars, right? Netscape versus Microsoft. And it was a real battle for control of HTML. Browsers were throwing proprietary shit into their browsers, left, right, and center. And it was tough work for a standards body. But things began to settle down a bit. And by 1999, we had HTML 4.01, which was the last version of HTML. And it's pretty much been that way ever since. It's got a good, stable sort of body of work.